short delay in starting. I literally just walked back in from Delhi, where I had gone this morning, and there were impending thunder showers in Delhi, which unfortunately I didn't get to stay back long enough to enjoy, but they did make the flight delayed, so apologies for being a few moments late. But it's so beautiful to be back with you all, even just gone for half a day. Coming back is such an incredible gift and such an incredible blessing. Starting, as always, with one of the questions from our family joining us from online, and then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. How have you been able to forget the abuser from your childhood? This is asked by Ananda Grace Ray on Instagram. How have you been able to forget the abuser of your childhood? So, in my memoir, in my autobiography that came out a couple of years ago, Hollywood to the Himalayas, I shared aspects about my personal history that I had not ever shared in a public way before. And I shared them very specifically because they had really powerful lessons and teachings and possibilities and opportunities for everyone. And it felt to me really important and also a beautiful blessing to be able to share the ways that I had struggled and the ways that I had been blessed to be able to overcome the struggles, to be able to show other people that spirituality is not only something available for those who have never struggled, or for those who don't know struggle, or for those who have no idea what it means to be angry or in pain or longing or jealous or frustrated or any of those things. In any case, one of the pieces that I shared was a piece of abuse that I had suffered in my childhood. And the way that had stuck with me as part of my identity for so long as the one who was abused. And as that had not just impacted, but really informed who I thought I was. Oh, I was the one who had been through this. I was the one who had been through that. I was the one who suffered in this way. And one of the very first teachings that Pujya Swamiji gave me, and most definitely one of the most powerful teachings of my life, had to do with letting it go, forgiving. And it's important to mention that we're not talking about forgetting. Forgetting is different than forgiving. The goal, I know people say forgive. Path. It never felt to me actually like forgetting was a beneficial thing. I certainly needed to forgive, because if I didn't forgive, I wouldn't be able to be free. And that's become really the core of the teaching, is we forgive not because what someone did is okay, not because it's forgivable, but because if you don't forgive, you cannot be free. as long as you're holding on to a grudge, to an anger, to pain from something, you can't actually be free. So the forgiveness is necessary. But forgetting, for me, to be able to remember that this had happened, and to be able to see the distinction between the me who was holding on to grudges, the me who was angry, the me who was depressed, the me who felt like I was not good enough or there was something wrong with me, compared to after having forgiven, compared to after having let go. That was a really powerful change, and it felt really beneficial to actually be able to look back and to say, hey, wow, I used to really suffer. Hey, wow, this used to be a really difficult type of experience for me. Hey, wow, I'm not suffering anymore. That was powerful. So I never felt the need or the desire to forget. I didn't want to forget. I wanted to be able to know and to be able to share. I've been through this struggle. I've been through this challenge. I've been through this trauma. And I know freedom. And I know joy, and I know peace. Because if I forgot that it happened to me, then I couldn't sit up here and say to you, you can know freedom. You can know joy. You can know happiness. So I think on some level, the forgetting of that which was done to us is really beneficial when it comes to little things. I've had people say things to me, it's actually happened quite frequently, where people will say, God, I'm really sorry that I did this, or I'm sorry that I forgot to do that, or I'm sorry that, and I have no recollection of what they're talking about whatsoever. Evidently, a few weeks ago, a few months ago, a couple years ago, there was a conversation. They had promised to do something that they didn't do, or they had done something that had kind of messed up things in some kind of way. And by God's grace, I had just forgotten. Not just forgiven and let go, but absolutely forgotten that this person had messed up or wronged us or, not fulfilled their promises in any way. So I think on the little day-to-day stuff, it's really beneficial to be able to forget, to just let it go completely from the memory also. Like a line in the water. You draw a line in Ganga, and half a second later, the line is gone. Doesn't stay. You can keep drawing a line in Ganga, but it's over in a moment because she's flowing. And I think that for the day-to-day stuff in life, to be like that is really wonderful. Not only should we forgive, but we should forget. But I think that for the stuff that's much more life-transforming, the severe stuff that happens, the stuff that could be called trauma, the stuff that really has left a deep impression on who we are, forgiving is key. Letting go of the anger is key. Letting go of the identification is key. But I'm not sure that we need to completely negate important aspects of our history. Because even having forgiven and let go, the fact that that happened to me has formed who I am. It's what got me into the suffering that I was in, that led me to ask Pujya Swamiji about fear, that led him to tell me to walk into Ganga and let it go. It's what had defined so much of my life. It's what led me into the depression and the anxiety and the eating disorder. It's what now makes me understand people who suffer from addiction, people who suffer depression so deeply. So I don't want to forget that. And we have to forgive. So the way to forgive is that you recognize really deeply and really clearly that you are not forgiving someone because what they did is okay. That's always the hang-up. How do I forgive? My God, they did something awful. There are things in this world that from the perspective of a court of law, or the police, or moral law, or ethical law, or spiritual law, is unforgivable. There are things that people do that we could all agree they should be locked up in jail for the rest of their lives. And if that happens to you, you still should forgive them. Let the courts deal with them, the courts of the land and the cosmic karmic court. It will deal with them. But we forgive because if we don't, we are stuck forever. If we don't forgive, there is absolutely no way around depression, anxiety, anger, misery. None of that. If we hold on, we are forever stuck. And so we let go and we forgive because we love ourselves and because we know that we deserve to be free. So you have to separate someone's action and your right to be free. Because if you link the two together, you are literally sacrificing your right to be free, your happiness, your peace, simply because someone else violated ethical principles, moral principles, laws, values, norms. But you didn't. You didn't. They deserve to be locked up forever. You don't. But when we hold on to the grudge, we're locking ourselves up forever. In that anger, in that experience, in that pain. So to forgive is actually the greatest spiritual practice. You can do all the meditation you want. Do all the japa you want. Do all of everything you want. But if you keep holding on to anger and grudges, you're not going to be free. It's perhaps the most difficult spiritual practice, but it's the most important one. Because it's the foundation, the prerequisite for anything else and everything else. So when things become a matter of life and death, you just do them. You realize if you don't, you won't survive. And so things that you didn't think you were capable of doing, you do it. And that which feels in you unforgivable, when you realize this thing is suffocating you, this thing is killing you, you let it go. You forgive. And the other aspect of that is that you realize that people who do these awful things, they do it not because they're awful people. They do it because in their doing the best that they can with the toolbox they have, they had no other option. A situation arose, a moment arose, a circumstance arose. They opened their toolbox, metaphorically. And the moment required patience or love or understanding or loyalty or compassion. And they opened their toolbox and they had none of those things. And all they had was impatience, anger, violence, disloyalty. And so that's what they had to use. And so we forgive them also in both the soul of who they are, that's on its karmic journey the same way that we are on our karmic journey. And we also we also forgive the sacred humanity of who they are, that's just navigating its way through its own karmic package. That must have been really awful, because if people do awful things, it's because they are experiencing awfulness inside of them. We only give to the world what we have inside. And if I'm giving the world pain, it's because I'm in pain inside. If I'm giving the world anger, it's because that's what I'm manufacturing inside. If what I'm manufacturing inside is love, I'm going to share love. And if what I'm sharing is pain, it means that's what I'm manufacturing inside. And therefore, that's what's flowing out. So if you're getting a little bit of someone's pain, see whether you can drop into compassion for a moment and understand how painful it must be inside of them. It's like if you've ever stood near a pot of boiling water, and a tiny, tiny, tiny drop, when it really starts to come to a big roaring boil, tiny little drop of water will fly out of the pot and maybe hit your hand. And you feel, ow, God, that's really hot. Well, if it's that hot in a tiny drop that has flowed out of the pot, imagine how hot it is if you stuck your hand in there. Imagine how hot it must be inside for a tiny half drop that flies out to burn you so badly. And in the same way, when someone's words or actions or inactions burn you so badly, ask yourself what it must be like inside if this is what is flying out. And so we challenge ourselves, our spiritual selves, to some compassion. Because ultimately that's what brings us the freedom and the joy and the peace that we're looking for. So thank you to our Ananda Grace Ray for such a beautiful question to start. Any other questions? We have microphones on both sides, so whichever microphone is closer to you. But anyone who has any questions? Yes? Just 1 second, we're going to start here and then we'll come. Yeah. Namaste.
I have a question which maybe have been answered earlier by gurus and
भैया इसको पकड़ लो है ना उनके लिए आपने निकाल दिया था.
What I would like to know, that in a lot of religious books and the teachers, they always tell us that जो भी होता है, whatever it happens, it is the will of Lord or God. अच्छा जो होता है वो भी with the will of Lord, and जो बुरा होता है वो भी with the will of Lord. जैसे पुस्तकों में, in books it says, पत्ता भी परमात्मा के मर्जी के बिना नहीं हिलता. So my question here is, see, when we do something good, it's good. But when we do something bad, we do get punished for it. Okay?
Yes.
So, if God made me do something bad, जैसा पत्ता नहीं हिलता, He might have put in my mind to do something nasty or wrong. So why should I be punished for that, since it was the will of Lord?
Great question. Okay. So, when we look at the creation of the universe and the creation of humans and our lives and our karmic packages, God created in what we call this Leela, this divine drama. It has been created according to God's will in the creation of it. But then we've been given something called free will. And that was also God's will, that we would have free will. God could have micromanaged everything. But God gave us free will. And in that free will, we make choices. And those choices have consequences. Now, when God created this universe, if we take that perspective, along with free will, we have this law of karma. And the law of karma, when we say God's will, it doesn't mean, oh, God wanted me to do this horrible thing or gave me this idea. It's the fact that I have free will was God's will. The fact that the law of karma exists was God's will as the creator, just like the law of gravity exists. It's a scientific law. You could say, why is there gravity? Well, when the divine created the creation, the way to keep the planets and the moons from, hitting each other or falling out into space, we've got this great law of gravity, this great magnetic pull that keeps it just kind of far enough that we benefit from the light, but that we're not getting smashed into it. And neither the moon nor we are falling out into open space. So we've got these different laws that keep the universe together. Law of gravity, law of karma, and many other ones. It's not God's will that you are going to use your free will to violate all of the teachings that God has given us when God has come on earth in form so many times. Whether you read and study the Ramayana, whether you read and study the Mahabharata, whether you read and study the Bible, whatever scripture you're looking at, whatever aspect of the divine who has come on earth and given us teachings, whatever aspect you follow or subscribe to, God has been one thing for sure, which is unequivocally clear. Thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that. Bhagavan Krishna has given us 700 verses. It's this thick. It's not that you have to read all the Vedas in their original Sanskrit. Pick up a copy of the Bhagavad Gita in any language. 700 verses, you can read it in 2 hours. It tells you. So it's not God's will that you're going to use your free will to violate everything that we have been taught, and also, even more importantly, to violate the very truth of yourself. Because the core of who you are is not a separate body, a separate man with emotions, and sometimes I feel greedy or lustful or angry or frustrated or stressed or jealous, and then I act in a certain way and it has negative that I then get punished for. It's not that. Who you are really is soul, spirit, inseparable from God. And when we act in ways that harm each other, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, directly, indirectly, not only are we violating what God has given to us in Scripture, told us with God's own words in the times when God was here on earth, but we're actually violating the very truth of ourselves. Because if I treat you like an other, and so I yell at you, or I steal from you, or I harm you in some way, that's actually violating the very truth of myself. Not only is it violating you, but it's violating the truth of myself, which isn't separate from you. I'm violating my own nature, which is soul. And that soul is one with all. That soul is light. It is expansive. It is infinite. So everything that we do that has stemmed out of our feeling small, our false identifications with the bodies, with our roles, is not only a violation of what God has told us, it's a violation of our own self. So don't blame God. God was not the little birdie in your ear that said, steal this, or cheat on your wife, or lie about that. This was pure and simple. Ignorance, vasana, illusion, maya, it's all the stuff of the mind. And because God has given us a law of karma, there will be consequences. You will be punished. Not because God's sitting up there as, the principal in the sky. You do something bad, you get sent to the principal. And it's not that. It's that there is a law of nature. Walk off a building, you're going to plummet to the ground. Law of gravity. Bring about pain, you're going to get pain. Law of karma. You're going to be punished. When we say God's will be done, it means, oh God, let me free myself of my will. My will is that which is built out of a sense of myness. That ignorance, that ego, mine. My wants, my needs, my desires, my this, my that. So the prayer is, oh God, let me be free of this false sense of mine, and let me recognize that your will is my will. I'll end with an example. Look at the Mahabharata, for example. We've got Krishna. We've got God on earth in form. Now we've got Duryodhana, right? And we've got a war that seems to be impending. Because Duryodhana and family are not prepared to act in a dharmic way, an ethical way, a fair way. Now, Krishna does not whisper into Arjun's ear, kill them all. He does everything he can to prevent that war. Everything he can to prevent the war. He talks to Duryodhana. He tries to explain to him. He, through so many different times, so many different ways, tries to convince them. Act in Dharma. Don't make this mistake. He did everything he could. You could say God's will was the war should not happen. Because he did everything he could to prevent that war from happening. But when we get blinded by ego, we get stuck in my will and not God's will. And when what you do is your will and against God's teachings, against the truth of who you are, you suffer the consequences. It wasn't that Krishna wanted death and destruction. What Krishna knew was Dharma must be restored. There must be Dharma. They were not ready. Okay. Then the war happened. But it's not God, it wasn't Krishna who whispered in Duryodhana's ear, don't give them any land. Don't act in Dharma. Be selfish. That was not God's will. Krishna wasn't coaxing Duryodhana from behind the scenes of how to play a good villain. Krishna was working in the opposite way. So it's not God who's the voice in your head that makes you do the things that you suffer the ramifications from. It's ignorance, it's illusion, it's Maya, it's all of that. So you get punished by the universe, but instead of taking it as a punishment, take it as a lesson of where did I forget myself? Don't think about it as rewards and punishments. Think about it, how did I forget myself? And act so not in accordance with my truth of who I am. Beautiful. Yes, of course. Other questions? Yes.
Hello. I'm feeling very lucky to be here. Tomorrow I'm going. But
can you speak into the microphone?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm unable to speak. There are 5 people around here. Every brain is unique here. They are different, as we have got 5 fingers. Now you are telling me that if somebody is hurting you, you forgive him. These 5 people have got 5 levels of patience. How to control myself? To forgive the other person who is hurting me.
How do we forgive the person who is hurting you? That's the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How to forgive?
How to forgive the person who's hurt you?
Have that level of patience in me.
How to have the patience in you? Well, as Pujya Swamiji always says, you've only got 2 choices in the world. Either have patience or become a patient. Right? It's your only option. Yes. Any other questions? Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. A beautiful morning to our family joining us from all over the world. I look so forward to being together with you all again tomorrow, and do be sure to take advantage of the beautiful yoga classes and meditation classes, and join for the morning fire ceremony and all of the wonderful activities that we have here at the ashram. It's open to everyone, even if you're not staying here. It's still open to everyone. There's no charge for anything. And there's a list up in our reception area of the daily schedule. So be sure to fill your day with as much nectar as you can. And I look forward to